Hey everybody, back in action. Today we have Rachel Varga. She is my go-to skin non-toxic lifestyle expert person. I even coaxed her into talking to me about my skin one day. Uh, so I'll let her introduce herself, but I'm excited for what we're going to chat about today. Part of it's skin routine, toxic burden on typical things that maybe we're used to seeing, maybe hidden places where there might even be mold issues in your skin routine or just your normal kind of getting ready routine. And then even getting into some of beyond tactical, physical things like that, talking about just kind of the emotional impact that dealing with, the complex illness, invisible illness, like those types of things, and having a talk around that. So I'm excited to get into this. So before we do it, Rachel, first, welcome. Second, introduce yourself again.
Yes, thanks for having me. We had a lot of fun in our one-on-one. I got to meet your beautiful wife and share some
Mhm.
skin insights with some of the rashes you were experiencing and some of the
Yeah,
things that can help. So that's where
I'm
I
much
can.
better, by the way. I'm haven't had any issues since we talked, so that's cool.
Fabulous. Happy to hear that. So my name is Rachel Varga, and I'm what you would call a double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist. So also a huge biohacker myself, a speaker in the health and wellness space in specifically how we can slow aging. And my end goal is all about how we can look and feel our best. And I've been doing this work since 2011, published papers on PubMed. You could just type my name in, Rachel Varga, and you'll see some of my papers. And one that I wrote on oxidative stress status and its impacts on skin aging was basically a roadmap for biohackers to look at really cleaning up the environment first and then detoxing. So, my angle for beauty and long lasting beauty, well into our 90s, is all about purity. And with that, mold is a massive part because it's in most homes.
Hmm.
And while I was getting ready, doing my skincare routine and brushing my teeth and brushing my hair, it's like, oh, we got to talk about this on today's show because mold can hide in your self care and beautification products
Hmm.
and tools. Your toothbrush, that connection part, if you have an electric toothbrush, and also in your hairbrush, underneath the bristle part, can harbor mold. So it's not about being like, "Oh my gosh, I never knew this. I was, harming myself this whole time." These are just things that you're gonna start to learn about and then start to integrate and have awareness on. And that's what's so cool about this show is you're learning kind of where mold hides. So those are 2 key parts where mold hides. So, long story short, aesthetic nurse, was doing all the rejuvenation stuff, started to teach doctors and nurses across North America how to do it, write papers on it in about 2017. And then met my good friend Dave Asprey, and he introduced me to this world of biohacking and
Hmm.
started to do that stuff and was like, whoa, reducing oxidative stress and integrating biohacking into my beautification routine. I didn't have to do as many rejuvenation procedures anymore. And I look better now than I did when I started in the industry in 2011.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, we hear this phrase literally every day at this point, but it's the whole, it's root cause this, root cause that, right? And it's figuring out what's the thing that's driving it comes down to a point almost, right? But then it's almost like a cone, like for people visualizing. So let's say you have a cone pointing upwards and the point is way down at the bottom and that's where the cone is. And that's like origin point of whatever. And then it sprays out in like a wide cone. And the farther you get away from origin, the more across the range of the cone of all the different symptoms and problems and things that occur at that point. And it becomes really hard to figure out well, how do I address, I mean, just what we're talking, skin is one piece of it, but then there's, your long-term health, there's potential for cancer, for Alzheimer's, for all these other things. There's chronic this, chronic that, chronic fill in the blank. And I'm not saying that mold is the cause for everything, but the thing is all of that now spans almost like a shotgun out of like an initial point at the bottom of this cone that we're talking about, right? And so it, like, the further down to the bottom of that cone that you can get and say, hey, if I could like take this, it's almost like the butterfly effect. You ever see that movie, The Butterfly
You
Effect?
sure have.
I loved that movie when I was a kid. But it's like, oh, can I go back to this point in time and change this thing? And then none of these other things will happen, right? That movie, all other things happen. But it's like that's the idea. And so that's why it's nice to kind of talk about things like that, especially like your realm that you live in, because it's not the normal thing we talk about all the time, but it's something that happens and people are exposed to and people are dealing with. And whether it's symptoms or discomfort or just lack of of what the effect looks like or whatever, like it's part of the equation.
Yeah, I love how you used that analogy. I use the toxic bucket analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So the toxic bucket, aka oxidative stress, inflammation, this is what ages us, inflammaging. And the key environmental contributors are toxins in air, oh, mold,
Mm-hmm.
water, lighting,
Mm-hmm.
electromagnetics are foods, which some foods carry a lot of mold, which I'm sure you've spoken about extensively. Clear that out, then do the detoxing. So, what happens with the skin when we're exposed to something? And just to frame this, the skin is the largest organ of the body, and it reflects, in my opinion, what's been going on inside for maybe the last week or two that maybe you were exposed to stress wise in one form or another, whether that's physical or non physical, so environmental or emotional or energetic and spiritual. And we tend to see skin issues occur when that bucket just gets too full. It's like this one thing that, you know, lights the match. And then we get the skin disruptions. So, in my opinion, if we can just do everything we can all the time to purify our environment, body, mind, spirit, energy, be super dialed in, be intentional with how we move through life, making great decisions. Out of integrity, too, is also a piece of that to reduce lower vibrations, including guilt and shame, so that we keep our vibe high. So that, hey, when we go to somebody's house, or for me, I snowbirded in Florida, a lot of mold there, your
Mm-hmm.
body can handle it. And so this is getting to the resilience piece. It's getting to the readiness piece, keeping that bucket as empty as possible so that you can be as beautiful and radiant for as long as possible to show up for your loved ones, because presence is essentially love. So, for all of you here learning this information that is so instrumental, you're basically adding to your bucket of knowledge and wisdom in these little pieces that are going to support you along the way. So, it's not so much about being hyper focused and hyper vigilant on, oh, there's mold here, there's mold there. I'm feeling achy today. I got exposed to mold. It's take a breath. A lot of times when people are moving through autoimmune conditions or chronic diseases, they don't feel safe. They don't have a sense of safety because something in their environment is a threat and they have a hard time managing that. And so it creates this like vulnerable emotional loop of there's a threat. And especially for women, the sense of safety is so key. So there's the physical component with mold, but there's also the emotional component with mold. And I've felt this in one of my previous homes. I was like, I know there's mold in this bathroom. And so I did an organic acids test and a Dutch test. And sure enough, like five
Mm-hmm.
different strains of mold showed up. And I was like, oh, I really want to redo this bathroom. But there was resistance from my partner. But like I could see the black in the tiles.
Mm-hmm.
I'd keep that door shut, open that window. I wouldn't even want to use that bathroom. And so that for me was a challenge because I knew something was negatively contributing to my health, but I felt powerless to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think it's a common thing that we feel in like different ways. Sometimes powerless because I'm not the only one making the decision, and so I have to get somebody else on board. Sometimes powerless because I can't really see it. And what am I supposed to do? And it's so like the overwhelm kind of creates that feel in a way, because if I don't know exactly like what I'm doing, then how do I actually do it? Am I going to make it worse? All of a sudden I start spiraling. Next thing you know, I stop, I paralyze, I do nothing. Right.
Mhm.
And that like fear of the unknown stuff in the future is what I've seen be a really big contributor to people not being able to progress, because they literally stop because they're almost too afraid of what might happen in the future, even though it has not happened yet. Right. So there's like different ways that like that lack of control or that lack of power or autonomy, or like however you want to say it, like that when you lose that, then it's kind of what you start talking about. Now you started talking about like, even if you just go sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, like if you constantly feel that something is attacking you, or that there's a problem and there's this fear that's there, you're going to always be sitting in your sympathetic state. And when you're there, you can't heal. Like that isn't the healing state. And so, sure, there's the body's breathing this and it's triggering that. And yeah, all that stuff is real. Like that's important. But there's a reason why there's so much more around trauma work that's come up over the last couple of years. That there's so much more conversation around all of this stuff, is because it like the body is not just the body, it's the mind too. It's the electrical signals, it's the chemical releases, it's like all of that stuff that goes on. And these individual triggers can have multi-system impact across, chemical release versus, this versus that in the body. And it's when you start talking about it like that, it just sounds overwhelming. It's like, oh, now there's all these things. And I think you said something to this extent a minute ago, but it's not about being like freaked out of like, oh, there's all these things. It's about like just being aware that things are there, and then just trying to make decisions that serve you the best, as opposed to not, right? And like you're not going to be perfect, but I think that's a big message to take away out of a lot of these things, because a lot of times people just feel like it's too much to handle, and what do I do?
Well, I mean, remediation, it can be costly, and maybe that's out of the budget. So instead of perseverating on that, which, yeah, absolutely can be a trauma response, a toxin response also with hypervigilance, is to just be at peace and give yourself something you can do that will give you a sense of control. So, doing everything else you can in your life to purify your environment, air, water, lighting, electromagnetics, eating the right foods, jumping in your sauna a couple times a week, taking some binders, right? And then when the time comes to do the remediation or moving, then you can take care of it at that time. But in the meantime, you're safe. You're doing everything else right as much as you can. And it's almost like getting a sense of sovereignty emotionally back with your nervous system, because what's going to typically tip the scale with skin irritation and autoimmune stuff is stress, right? So when people deal with eczema and psoriasis, there's oftentimes like an emotional stress that's tied to it that happens in their lives. So the most beautiful people I know are cool, calm, and collected, kind of no matter what. It's almost like you fake it till you make it. But look at your toothbrush and your hairbrush, get back to clean. Really, really, an easy thing to do to give you that sense of control back.
Well, let's talk about other ways that are easy ways to gain a little more control. Obviously, we talked on the mold stuff. I'd love to kind of go into some places where maybe it feels easier to make decisions that can help reduce the load that's in your bucket that we talked about, right? And so skincare is a big piece of that. You met my wife briefly. She screens everything that comes into the house, whether we're eating it or putting it on our bodies or whatever. So like I know that like what we're using, 90% of what we have in the house is like, relatively good for us or not bad for us, right? But there's an empowerment and like understanding, hey, I'm using this lotion, but it actually, like you said, like skin is your biggest organ. If this lotion has something in it that's a problem, it's being absorbed in multiple places. So like from the things that most people do in some way, which is like some sort of like let's call face wash, lotion, things that people kind of typically do. What are some of the things that you see that are issues? What are some of the types of things that maybe for like swaps or alternatives that people could be thinking of to kind of get some agency back in some of this and some of their feelings?
100%. So reducing that toxic load through your personal care products, super key, right? And that's something that everybody can start to switch up. Kudos to your wife for taking on that very beautiful nurturing role to make sure that the food's good, that the cleaning agents are great. She's keeping things tidy, vacuumed, whatever. It sounds like that's a really lovely way that you work together. By the way, the polarity aspect of the masculine and the feminine is huge in nervous system regulation and feeling safe. It's really interesting to see like what people have in their lives that look the best. So polarity is an interesting component. It sounds like you kind of have that, right? She's got the nurturing role. You got the podcast here. You got a great family. Love always connecting with you.
The
When
best. Yeah. That's zero complaints. Frankly, I don't. I almost feel like I need to knock on wood all the time. Like I hear all these other people talking about, you go out, it's like complete tangent. We'll come back. Well, like I was out to to dinner with like some friends like a week ago, and I'm sitting at the end of the table with all the guys, and all the girls are on the other side. We split up like we were in junior high school again. We're at dinner, and I'm sitting at the table with the guys, and it's a lot of like, kind of like, half complaining about, their home life or whatever. And I'm sitting there and I literally had nothing to contribute. it's
Mm.
like, it's like my wife's like perfect. I don't really understand like where all this is coming from. I just don't relate. So coming out of that dinner, I like said, I was like, hey, listen, I heard some of this stuff over here. Just want to say thank you again if I haven't already, because I didn't even feel like I could be a part of that conversation, and that's a good thing. So that was
Ooh.
anyway. That was a side tangent.
Contrast and polarity. So what you're doing right is you're keeping your family safe from mold.
Well, yeah, our place is pretty. At least I feel good about our place, so we got that down. And she's
100.
handling the food and the cleaning products in the house and the skin stuff, and she started like making stuff from scratch in the house because the ingredients on the stuff from the store are crazy. So now she literally just makes all this stuff to like keep it super clean. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, she's
Oh,
great.
I'm so happy to hear that. And like ladies, we bring the beauty, right? So share your skincare products, your personal care products with your man. They'll appreciate it. You don't want to be looking that much better than your man. It's huge.
She literally stocks all my stuff. I have no idea what I put on myself.
Totally.
She's like, here, this is for this. This is for this. This is what you
Yeah.
like. Thank
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
you.
Um, so in the home, easy things, change your HVAC filter once a month. Make sure the seals in your dishwasher are super clean. Your laundry, make sure that you're cleaning out your washing machine for your laundry is clean too. Your bedding, I mean, everything. You talk about this stuff extensively, so I'm not going to go there. But what I am going to talk about is the toxins that can be found in a lot of personal care products:
Yep.
parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, fragrances. I've seen tin, BPA, and DNA in very popular over the counter skincare, a lot of microplastics. So starting to make decisions to really, get through some of the products that you have, like don't waste it, but make conscious intention towards what you're putting on your skin doesn't just smell good or feel good, but it's actually nourishing you. And with my experience, having been an aesthetic nurse since 2011, I've worked with some of the best medical grade skincare lines out there, and they feel great. They give results, but I just felt a little bit of like ick because they could be cleaner. They could be more clean. So this has always been essentially like the thing I've grappled with in the industry is we have great products that give results, but they're not as clean as they could be. So that's the need that I filled with my skincare line that I launched last year. It's called the Always Radiant skincare line. And I was able to do it with a scientist that had the technology to do 6-time filtered water. A lot of skincare products is just tap water,
Mm-hmm.
biofilms in the water, contaminants, all this stuff. So 6-time filtered water. And then also it's preserved with colloidal silver. which is huge. And colloidal silver has so many beautiful, scientifically research backed benefits for the body. And they feel great. And you know that what you're putting on your skin is nourishing you. You're not adding to the toxic bucket. I put every single product that I've formulated and made in my mouth. Like, I'm not saying you do that. This isn't medical advice, educational information only. Thank you, I'm a medical condition and must seek guidance of a licensed physician. But I would. And so it's everything. I've created everything from a hyaluronic acid serum that's got the colloidal silver in it. That's actually blue, by the way. Sorry, that's the copper peptide. The copper peptide's blue. So copper peptide's really great as being a senolytic on the skin. So you've probably all heard of like autophagy. That's what cold plunging and saunaing will do. You can take senolytics internally to get rid of the cells that need to go. It's kind of like dead weight that signal to other cells to misbehave. But copper peptide actually does that on the skin too. And I've been using copper peptides for years with these.
So it'll be like surface level autophagy is what you're triggering with that?
Yes.
Oh, very
Yeah.
interesting. That's cool.
And my copper peptide's blue because the copper peptide precipitate is blue. And I have a background in Gen Chem, Organic Chem, and Biochem. And every other copper peptide I sold over the years was clear. So I'm like, great. All these copper peptides I've been selling from other people's companies, they didn't have enough copper peptide in it.
Interesting. Can you talk about colloidal silver just a bit more for people, and why is it like, what is the research that you're talking about? Why is it beneficial for people? What is the role that it serves, in the formulations?
Well, it's a natural preservative. So instead of having to use things like parabens, it has the properties of antimicrobial,
Hmm.
which is incredible to not have to add other things to keep that formulation stable.
Yeah, I've heard of people. I know people use colloidal silver for detoxing purposes alone, right? Because of what is sometimes they'll like spray it in their nose. There's like all these different ways to execute it. So the, you know, the purpose of adding it in is a preservative, or it's to serve the role of a preservative is what it is in
Correct.
effect.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
then,
you're stabilizing it for longer periods of time. Like,
yeah, you got it.
got it.
And then I also did a C60 serum, so a carbon 60
Oh,
serum,
cool.
which potent antioxidant. Some people actually just don't tolerate vitamin C really well. It can make their skin a little sensitive and irritated. Same with retinol and vitamin A. There's something known as the retinoid reaction phase. So redness, flaking, irritation when we first start using it. So it's like, I'm going to do this different. I'm going to use C60 topically, and it is one of the most incredible serums I've ever put on my skin. And I've utilized some of the best products on the market. I love it. It's so hydrating, and it's not as well known of an antioxidant as, say, vitamin C in skincare, but I think it's great. And then there's a light moisturizer and a heavy moisturizer. So if someone's a bit acne prone, the light moisturizer is great. And then the heavy moisturizer is great for, like, say, more mature skin. And I want to jump back to the copper peptide. So we've heard about copper peptide for a number of years now, like a couple years. It started to get really popular in the biohacking space. And, lots of people are using peptides like BPC 157 or melanotan or all these other peptides. But what's cool about applying the copper peptide on the surface of the skin, it's going to help to trigger autophagy. So pigmentation, it's a buildup of melanin in the skin, right? So the brown,
Mm.
sunspots, age spots, melasma. And that's why actually detoxing is so great. So if, say, this is kind of a theory I have, that people who struggle with hyperpigmentation and melasma, the melanin is accumulating and the body isn't clearing it out. So when I see someone with melasma, and this is, again, just kind of my theory, but I've been in the skin game since 2011, it's that they need to stimulate more autophagy in their body. So whether it's topically with copper peptide, of course, sunscreen, but also with regular sauna usage.
Mhm. How, might be a silly question. for some reason in the body, the idea of autophagy makes a lot of sense to me. I'm like, oh yeah, it's in the body. It's your cells are going to, but then like on the surface of the body, I don't know why I immediately was like, so is it like peeling off? Like, I know that's probably not what's happening,
No,
but like that's
no.
where my head went in terms of getting rid of these, like zombie cells, dead cells, cells that aren't functioning properly, getting
No,
them
it's
out.
more just like topical, okay, let's maybe do some clearing out of cells that really aren't functioning the way that they should be. So that's what autophagy does, is it tells the other senescent cells, they're kind of zombie cells that signal they're not operating properly. There's some
Mhm.
dysfunction. It's like dead leaves on a tree. And what autophagy does is it helps to clear out those senescent cells. So that's why we call these products senolytics. And I think the idea of internally stimulating autophagy, especially through detoxing, cold exposure is going to do that. Sauning is going to do that. You can take things internally, but why not actually do
No,
it topically too? I think it makes perfect sense. So it's kind of like this inside out approach, which is my approach for helping, myself and many others look and feel their best from the inside and out.
yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense too. It's targeting the same function to a specific area, but like and then you support it with like a core systemic version of it from inside the body. I think it makes like total complete sense. I You said cold. I don't know why I just flashed back to this. So was it 2 years ago? We're at this whatever conference it was. I forget where we were, and they had the cold plunges set up out there, and it was my first time cold plunging, and they had two different tubs, and I didn't find this out till later. They had one that was like way colder. It was like 38 degrees or something, completely insane and not necessary. And then they had one that was like 45, which is still like really cold for people who haven't done it before. And they put me in the 38-degree tub, and I remember I remember I was sitting in this tub and I was like, there's so many people here. I think I spoke the day before. So like people like knew who I was too. I was like, there's so many people here. I can't get out of this tub. And I was like so painful. It was so bad. It was so cold. I just like flashed back to that because I remember that you were there and and yeah, anyways, I don't know. That just like bring me back to that. Um, Random question, because my wife and I just did this the other day. I don't know if uh you have any thoughts on this or not. Now we're talking like biohacking skin stuff. So our cold plunge isn't working now. Um, Fun fact, the one that we bought over there, the motor has not worked and are not getting a lot of response to help get it fixed. So that's
Oh
fine.
no, that's a bummer.
Wow. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So yesterday we or 2 days ago we had like a barbecue or whatever, and so I bought all this ice, and so we had all this ice in the cooler. And Nikki's like, I'm just gonna stick my face in this ice, like, which I know that Dave has talked about, Dave Asprey's talked about, a lot of other people, Ben Greenfield, like all the people have talked about it a lot. Um, for like, if you were gonna like look and do something like that, what? Because we just talked about the idea of doing like topical that's targeted as versus or in combination with like internal, more systemic. So that to me kind of feels like the same type of concept. Like, what if I go topical straight to a place? I'm just throwing it out there. Thoughts? I don't know. I just
I don't think it's going to make your fine lines and wrinkles go away magically or hooded upper eyelids or lower eye bags go away. But what it does do is tone that vagus nerve. And that is instrumental. So, what cold exposure can do is allows you to move into a space of I'm safe, I'm not dying, even though this is terribly uncomfortable. And
I feel like it for a second.
yeah, totally. And you breathe through
Mhm,
it. 4 seconds in, hold it for 4 seconds, 4 seconds out.
mhm.
And why this is such a great life skill is because stress is a sign of being alive. Most homes have mold. But the more we can dip into that parasympathetic state on demand when stress happens, which typically is from people, places, things, situation, bad decisions. It's typically where stress comes from. Then there's the physical 3D environmental stressors. But that is, I think, what actually makes someone more beautiful with having that degree of self mastery, that nervous system regulation. They can co regulate others with it. You're going to be able to make more friends because you're cool, calm, and collected. You're not this nervous wreck all the time. The negative Nancy allows bad stuff in, doesn't have good boundaries. You're the positive Patty that can be cool, calm, and collected and stay very grounded. So, at kind of like the depth of what cold exposure can do is it helps make your life better, because when a stress happens, you don't go into a adrenaline or cortisol fight or flight state. You stay a little bit more in the noradrenaline area. So when something happens, you're a little bit more like on target, eyes on the prize, as opposed to potentially erratic.
Yeah.
And I think you'll notice this in people who do practice cold exposure. I used to do way too much of it. I was in 2 car crashes, really
Mm.
bad whiplash and a really bad T-bone. And so I had to do cold to help knock down that inflammation and pain in my body. And I'd get pretty extreme with it. This was actually when
Mhm.
I was exposed to a lot of mold too. So it gave me a sense of control of my body. So I would do about 11 to 13 minutes up to my jawline in the
Mm.
Canadian Ocean.
Whoa.
And that's a lot. Like that was
Lot.
too much looking back on it. So I mean, I sort of wore it as like a badge of honor, like, oh, I can regulate myself no matter what. I'll get into a
Yeah.
cold plunge at an event. And I did this once at an event in Florida. And the founder's wife, I actually have this on social media on a reel. My socials at Rachel Varga official, by the way. You can see this. And I hear her in the background because I just get on, I get in and I'm like, huh. And I hear her asking, one of their team members or assistants, like, "Is this thing on?"
Well, you're the opposite of what I was. I got in that thing and I felt like I was gonna die.
Well, I started to see it as like a little bit of a flex. It's like, "Look how tough I
Yeah.
am."
Yeah.
And, but then I realized that actually more warmth is really great. It's actually more feminine too. And I had a TCM point this out to me once, that you wanna balance that yin yang, hot, cold. So now
Mhm.
when I do cold, I'll do like a 30-second blast in the shower or a couple minutes in the ocean. I won't go as extreme as I used to. There's also
Mhm.
a live cold plunge I did with Dave Asprey, and I think he timed me. I was in there for like 13 or 14 minutes. Anyway,
Fun.
so balancing the heat and the cold, I think, is really key. So just kind of an example of like, don't get too extreme with anything. It's like, yes, most homes have mold, but what are some of the things that you can do about it? Clean up your skincare, eat great foods, have great air purifiers, do a degree of mediation that works with your budget and lifestyle, and stay cool, calm, and collected, right? Keeping that emotional stress down is so, so powerful. Even though mold is one of those things, like I've been there, I've experienced this. It's like you feel powerless from it, but
Mhm.
you can choose to take action on different things to kind of give you that sense of safety. And it's great if your partner's aligned with the importance of mold remediation, but that's not always the case. It's usually one partner starts to learn about information that the other hasn't yet, and then they relay the information, and then they're like, "Oh, you're a crazy person. You're like hypochondriac. This is not a thing." So that in and of itself, and I've experienced this too, can create a little bit of disharmony in partnership when you could have come about it like, "This makes me feel unsafe. I'd love to, when the time is right, do some remediation, and I'm gonna be so much more relaxed about this." As opposed
Yeah.
to, "We got mold in our bathroom, we gotta take care of it. I listen to this podcast and, we gotta do this," like, that's overwhelming, right? Come at it from more when you're talking about this to your partner, from a little bit more of like how this makes you feel.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Like you gotta think of where the other person's head is at, right? So like, you as the person researching has been in it. You've probably been looking into it for weeks, if not longer at that point, right? You've like kind of like had a minute with it. And then you go talk to somebody else who it's like the first time that it's sort of being brought up to them. And if you come too hard with all the things right then, there's going to be a lot of pushback, right? Whereas the way that you're talking about approaching it, this is assuming that, you have a partner that is supportive of you and, cares about you and stuff, right? That if you come at it from the way that you talked about, no partner's going to want their other to feel that way, right? So you're not just going to immediately shut it down. You're almost going to feel like a dick if you just immediately shut it down. This is me talking from the guy, right? Like my wife came to me and said something like that, and I'd be like, no, it's stupid. Like I would feel terrible, right? Or like, no, this isn't happening at all. Like I wouldn't respond like that. I'd be like, all right, whether or not I believe it's a thing or not, it's making her feel a certain way. So like, let's talk about it, right? And then that opens up the door for you to then kind of like use an information and show like, I think the other like big element of having these conversations is like understanding how your partner processes information and what it is that gets them to make decisions, right? So if somebody is like a super logical, numbers data thinker, and you're coming in with, I listened to Brian on a podcast, they're gonna be like, who the F is Brian? And that's not real, right? But like, so you kind of have to know like what is the thing that they like resonate with when they make decisions, and you kind of present things in that way for them. And so I think there's like an understanding component there, that probably innately happens with partners, or like, I know how my wife kind of, thinks about stuff. She knows I kind of think about stuff. And then I think you just naturally sort of frame things in ways that helps. Right. But just adding on to what you said, I think that's another thing. And it could be helpful too.
Yeah, it's coming at it from a team,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so leading with, I feel a bit anxious seeing mold in the tiling in the bathroom. I know that the basement's got mold because I can smell it. And every time I go in there, it just makes me not feel safe. Boom. You know what your man's gonna do? They're gonna be like, I gotta keep you safe.
It's like natural, like caveman stuff. Like that is the role that like innately you feel like you need to do. That's why there's the parental instinct and there's the protection instinct and all that stuff. So like you're kind of
Mhm.
tapping. It's actually a really smart like hack. Like you're tapping into that innate like desire that is there, even though maybe not everybody thinks about it. Um, cool. Well, this was really cool. Let's wrap with one thing. Quick like rapid fire on like two or three things personal care wise that you think are like the most important things to like look at swapping or optimizing?
Clean your toothbrush, clean your hairbrush, or get new ones. And
Mm-hmm.
then keep up with cleaning them. Hydrogen peroxide, is that what you like to recommend?
Yeah, hydrogen peroxide works. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And clean up your skincare and your personal care products so that you're not adding these super toxic preservatives and stabilizers and things that like aren't actually feeding your skin. Use stuff that's actually going to feed and nourish your skin. And notice when your skin is talking to you. When that skin gets red, when it gets dry, you have dry, red, itchy, irritated eyes, irritated scalp, your brain's a little foggy. Notice what your body is actually trying to tell you and get really good at feeling into what some of the things are that just like, oh, give you a bit of tension and do things that are constructive to remedy them essentially as best you can. And know that you're not going to fix everything all at once, but making progress, I think like one thing each month is kind of more sustainable than the fire hose of biohacking and detoxification. And that way you're making steady progress into ensuring that your home is as pure and clean as possible and you're not a nervous wreck in the process. But I do really encourage a personal sauna so that when you're sauning, you're not getting exposed to other people and what they're detoxing. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can't do that, there are some more affordable sauna options. I actually have a solo unit right next to me that I was in earlier today. Or take a hot bath and sweat it out and detox that way. And, Epsom salts, baking soda, do your skincare. So your personal care practices are a form of self-love and you having, good boundaries of things that are important to you to maybe redo that bathroom or redo that kitchen when the time is right and it's sustainable and know that it will eventually get taken care of. And in the meantime, you're just going to take extra good care of yourself to reduce toxins that you can.
Yeah. And that's why my kids were just watching Frozen over the weekend, and
Oh, did
there's
my
the
hair
song.
trigger the Frozen? Because I have my side.
Actually, it looks, yeah, you're right. I didn't even put it together. Or there's this one song. It's like, I forget exactly what it says, but it's like you do the next best thing or something. Like at the time, you just do the next best thing, and like that's the thing. And so I think that's like a very cool like message out of it. Just real quick, like with the the skin is talking to you thing. Um, if you see like flare ups and stuff like that, is it saying, hey, what did I do different in the last 24 hours? In the last, like, you mentioned earlier that it's like a recency thing a lot of times with skin. So, like, how are you identifying like what it's trying to tell you?
It's actually being quiet enough to be able to listen to yourself and to operate at, I would say, a more dialed in way is you start to create this awareness of people, places, things, situations, toxins in air, water, lighting, electromagnetics, food. Like it takes a while to build an awareness on all of these things, but eventually it's my aim for you all to kind of know that, oh, I went to a restaurant, I had canola oil, or
Mhm,
I went to this place, I stayed in this hotel room, there was mold.
mhm.
You kind of have a sense that that's what it was. And then it's okay. Just take care of the things that you need to take care of. Maybe add in more sauning, maybe reduce alcohol and really clean up your diet because you know you had exposure to something. And then you just do the best you can. And I think that's um it's a form of self-mastery to be able to identify really quickly when you were exposed to something and then just take right action to be super clean and intentional with kind of every step throughout your life, throughout your day. Knowing that when you take such great care of yourself, you can have these random exposures to things like mold in food, toxins from this, that, the other thing, mold in a hotel room, and that your body can handle it. And you'll start to notice that when these flare ups start to happen, you can overcome them faster.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, we touched on a couple of them throughout the show, but go ahead and let's kind of put it all here at the end. Where do people find you? Where do we find your skin line you were talking about? Anything else that you want to share? Any other info?
Yeah, 100%. If you head on over to theschoolofradiance.com, there's a little pop-up, get on my newsletter because I share free information all the time. Once you get on there, you can you'll automatically be sent my skincare checklist, which is a really great document that I made that kind of lists out, okay, this is the skin condition. This is what I can recommend. These are some of the rejuvenation options that are available. And by the way, if you're in a mold flare up, that's not the time to do, or autoimmune flare up, that's not the time to do rejuvenation. So your home care is super key, and there's some more gentle things which I can walk you through. So skincare checklist, that's great. I have a free 30-minute biohacking video as well. The School of Radiance podcast. I do new episodes every week. You've been on it, Brian. You're going to be
Yeah.
back on it as well. And I share positive, uplifting, constructive kind of little um, nuggets, drip things in to just stay on track, but not make you stressed out, basket case in the process. But cool, calm, and collected at peace, knowing that you're doing right things. And then, of course, social media at Rachel Varga Official. I'm on there all the time. Lots of great free information that way too. And also, for those of you who would love to connect for a one on one, it's like, okay, what can I do at home, skincare wise, dermal rolling, biohacking for the skin, and also maybe some in clinic rejuvenation options. The one on ones, like what I did for you, Brian, are great because they save people tons of time and money. It's like,
The
okay,
water one was great. I gotta say, it was very in depth. It was really good. Yeah, it was really cool.
It's not just here's a skincare routine. It's like, okay, what are some of the other layers that you can start to,
Mhm.
tweak? And I walk you through that and give ongoing support. So use promo code Brian Carr 15 when you book your one-on-one with me at the
Cool.
schoolofradiance.com. And I'm super excited to meet a number of you.
Yay. Well, thank you for taking the time. I'll be on yours in a few weeks, I think, and we'll do it again.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing because the mold stuff is so key. And it's not fun struggling with autoimmune conditions because the
Um,
rates of them, what we're seeing in North America, are doubling every year.
yeah.
So it's important to be aware for both you and your family.
100%. Well, Rachel, thank you so much. Well, I'll talk to you later on your show. So when that comes, maybe you'll send me some stuff. I'll tell everybody that that's happening and they can go hear round two.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Good to
All
see
right.
you again.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.